Well, hello! Big box excitement today. Really quite big box. I had this one delivered while I was away. Can you tell who it's from? My poor neighbour had to sort out a special place just to hold that for me for a week because it was so large. But what's inside it? This. It's a Tomahawk wing from Durafly and obviously sold by HobbyKing. So let's take a look at it, shall we? Well, once you struggle to get that out of the box, you're left with this. Main thing you find on the top is this huge decal sheet. The idea is you can do your decals in one of 4 colours and you've got a bunch of numbers there. I guess the idea is if it's a racing wing, then you know you'll get your own colour, you'll get your own number. As far as actually what's in the box goes, or the foam packaging, quite nicely packed. You get this, which is highly reflective on the lights. But let's get stuff out here. This is the main thing. This is the little Tomahawk wing, 670mm, so pretty small. Takes a 3S or a 4S battery, so it should be pretty rapid. And it's using here a multi-star 2206 running at 2150, so pretty much your normal sort of little mini quad motor there. Servos are pre-installed, although we have to connect the control rods on. A nice skid plate here. This is made out of plastic, and there's a little air intake there. Getting the canopy through here. Pretty no frills inside. You've got your servo connectors coming out from the servos, and this one from the ESC. Tiny little ESC in here. It's a little 20 amp one. It does have a back inside, we'll be pleased to hear, to actually run the receiver. And XT60 connector here. What you've also got obviously is a little hole here, so you can put your FPV camera in. And there's space here for a battery. Something around the 1000 to 1300 in a 3S or a 4S is going to work. Canopy wise though, it's quite interesting. You get this one, and it's got, again, this little sort of plastic, I call it a skid plate, it's a little air intake and things. But you've got an alternative one here as well. They also give you this one, which is almost exactly the same thing, but it's got the bridge flattened here, so if you've got a your sort of flatter action camera, Mobius sort of style, you can put that in, and you've got a strap to put that on, which is quite nice to have interchangeable ones. So the other things in the box, you get the little, they're kind of winglets. They're sort of not really winglets in this place because it's kind of got a winglet there. So these are sort of the mid stabilizer fins that go on that bit. Get a 50-45 blunt nose prop. Not super efficient, but lots of thrust from one of those. You've got your control rods. These connect to little ball joints here already installed. Don't have any ball joint pliers, so always a bit of a struggle, but we'll see how that goes. Bit of Velcro for installing the battery. And these 2 little bits of fiberglass. These go on the underneath, just underneath the stabilizers here, and kind of hold in as this little, some sort of carbon rod, but they go in there, like that. Obviously we're going to need a receiver. I've got a FreeSky X4R I'm going to connect, which has 3 channels, which is just the right amount. Obviously I'm not using any sort of flight controller or stabilization system. It's just supposed to be a little fast race wing, so we'll be going with that sort of way of doing things. What there wasn't in the box is the instructions. So you go to the HobbyKing site and there's a link to the instructions that you can obviously print out or just look at. There's not much to it. A couple of little bits to stick together, where to get the CG, and I think there was some setup about how much surface movement you should have. What I need to decide is what camera I'm going to put in, what VTX I'm going to put in, where I'm going to put that. But let's get it together first, stick the bits together we need, and we'll take it from there.
So very quick build. I first waggled the elevons about to loosen them up. I found the push rods wouldn't quite fit in, so I took a scalpel and just wound it round just to open up the hole a little bit, which about got them in, and they looked about the right length, but I connected a battery and just made sure the servos were centered. I didn't have any special ball joint pliers, so what I did is very gently give them a squeeze some regular pliers, and I say gently because they'd break, and then finished them off with my fingers, and they look pretty good there. Next, got the Yoo-hoo pour out, stuck on the foam bits. Once that was dry, I turned over, did the other side.
So I found there were these little holes just either side of the main fuse here. I don't know if that's the intention, is to poke the antenna wires through there, but that's what I've done. So they're nice and that way. I'm just going to stick those down. This is not ideal position, of course. They should be sort of up 45 degrees each like that, but that's pretty good for this. Now FPV wise,
a bit of a bugbear here, because they've made this wing for FPV, and they've even given it, you can just see in there, the really nice insert for a sort of standard sized camera. But they've just given a single XT60. Why is it that whenever you find these sort of FPV designed planes, they've just got this single adapter? What they should have is some sort of flying cable off there, well, just like a JST lead or something, so you could do something with it. So I could break into the cable, or I think what I'm going to do is use a balance lead. So what I found in my spare box is this old Amway 200 milliwatt transmitter. I found this generic looking CCD camera with a 2.8mm lens, which just happens to have a servo cable on the end. So I then created these two little cables to go in there, just a servo lead attachment to the camera, just in case I want to unplug it. And here I've got a balance lead connector. I could only find either 2S or 4S balance lead connector like this, so I'm going to be running 4S. Now I haven't got any of the prescribed 1000 milliamp hour batteries, but I've just tried it with 1.3 and that seems to fit in okay. So let's get all this installed and we'll have a look at how it goes together before we can fly it. Okay, so we're now looking at the finished wing, and I'll just show you how the little bits went together, which isn't particularly neat, I have to say. We open up the hatch. We've got the camera nestled in there, just held in with a little bit of hot glue, VTX, and the cables up there, and obviously the pagoda poking through. The cables turned out to be a little bit too long. I could always shorten those later. So battery wise, and I've checked the CG, so I'm putting this 1.3 amp 4S quite a way back in order to get it right. And we'd obviously plug in like this. And then this for VTX, that sort of shoves in there. You can see how much spare cable I've got, a little bit too much. But it kind of all just gets out of the way. And we got that. So my CG is a little bit forward of where it should be. So it's a little bit nose heavy, but not necessarily a bad thing with wings. We've obviously checked all my surfaces are good, and we've got propeller thrusting in the right direction. I also went and, if I turn around this way, we've got the full rate here is about 20mm, and it says go between 10 and 20 on the surfaces. So if I do a 50% dual rate, that's then about 10mm, which is still in their recommended range. Oh, I should also mention I've set a failsafe as well. So my failsafe, sort of, the idea is just turn slightly in. So if I was going, for example, and I was, let's say I was aiming downwards, if I turn my transmitter off now, my failsafe, the idea is it just comes round slowly. Well, I say slowly, this could put it into a blind spin, but hopefully enough so the antennas might come back into range. Hello, check it out, sunny again. You can tell it's serious if I've got the floppy hat on. It's maiden time for the Tomahawk win. Now, if I'm sounding slightly nervous, it's because I'm very nervous. I don't like line of sighting planes, especially little wings, because I'm not great at it. I was just talking about this with the boys, and they were saying, oh, use a sim, and I'm fantastic on a sim. Real life, not as good, but you know, if we can get a couple of laps, or just a lap, and bring it down safely, then we can try FPV, and hopefully that'll be a lot easier, or at least more in my comfort zone. But yeah, let's chuck it up in the air and let's see what happens to it. It's still a lot of mud. It's dried out a bit, so it's not pure puddles. So hopefully that will give me a soft landing and, you know, won't drown it if I come in. Now, I had the GoPro angled too high up on my head, so my first throw here you didn't even see. You just saw what happened to it, which is it went down in the grass. Basically, I didn't give it enough welly, so I gave it full throttle this time and chucked it properly. Unfortunately, the camera is still pointing upwards, so you can't really see the plane much, apart from sort of when it comes around like this. But basically, yeah, it was okay. I did a couple of laps, and then I brought it down. And, you know, I was pretty happy with this landing. It came in nice and smooth, glided down. Well, that was typical, wasn't it? The only bit of really muddy stuff, and I managed to skim into... Oh, man. So I went over to FPV next. Now if you thought that throw went down a bit, yeah, it needed a bit of trimming out. So the launch was a little bit dodgy, but I generally use this battery to go around, sort out my trims and get it flying nicely. So it's pretty wobbly to start with, but there was an awful lot of me standing around hitting trim switches, just sort of gliding it around until I had it flying nice and neutral and right. And I tried to capture a couple of fly pasts. It's actually quite hard to see in the camera like that. And this is the view from on board, where it's a little bit bumpier, especially next to the wind. And once again, I brought it down in what I decided was a fantastic landing for me, and I managed to glide in to exactly the same stuff as last time.
That glided on into the same bloody place.
So let's move over to flight 2. So it's trimmed out nicely. Those launches are still quite hard. Now, what I did on this one, I accidentally launched it with full rates. After the first flight, I noticed that full rates were really, really spicy, even if you're quite gentle on the sticks. And I've got 40% expo on all the surfaces as well. But yeah, you cut this to 50%, it's still really reactive and you can still do a lot with it. So this is the plane now, all trimmed out, and I'm happy with the way it's flying. So what you can say about it is it's a little wing and it's not without wind up there, and so it's bobbling around. If you get it into the air higher up away from the trees, it's better. As soon as you pass the trees, you get all that turbulent air that's swirling around there, and you really do notice it. But you know, this is kind of inherent with all wings. Unless you've got a big heavy wing, it's gonna sort of bobble around to a certain extent, and you've got that very familiar yaw wag that you do get with wings, and that's kind of just the way it is. Flight characteristics though were good. It was easy to go around. I mean, it looks like it's bobbling, but it didn't take much control input. And that is, with 50% rates, you can still roll it around and loop, and it's quite acrobatic and it's very quick to respond. Of course, the lower you go, and I enjoy this sort of flying. I mean, it looks really hectic and crazy, but it's, you know, there's a good feeling of being in control despite it going like this. As this is intended as a sort of race wing, I guess this is what you'd mainly be doing, sort of going around low, going through, or around flags. I don't think they really do gates and wings. But yeah, very responsive and pretty easy to fly. Like all wings, they don't particularly like flying inverted. You feel like you're losing height all the time, and you practically have to poke your nose so far the other way not to lose any height. Now, despite me flying around at some full throttle, and it's fairly fast, although I do notice that after about 80% it just makes more noise rather than actually goes much faster. Even flying around full throttle and doing a bit of mixed stuff, for the first battery I flew for just over 10 minutes. So yeah, the first battery came out with 15.3 volts. The second battery I flew for just over 12 minutes, and that came out with 14.7. So I think even if you're, you know, not gentle with the throttle and you're really going for it, you can get 15 minutes out of this wing easily. Now, this is not what I call a distance wing by any means. It's just for messing around with, and I didn't take it out very far, but there's room there for all these guys that love putting iNav in every single plane they have, and you could go as far as you liked with it. Fly it gentle and that battery will go for even longer. Once again, here's another landing I would say is spot on and covered it in mud.
And it still survived. It's a little bit these lovely air intakes became mud intakes, unfortunately, in that field, and you can wipe it down all you like, but as soon as that mud gets into the in-between bits, it's kind of changing colour. But you know, you can't be too precious about these things or they just become hanger queens. And this is what I like with these little wings. I mean, that was just me flying in a field, but what's really great, if you get a couple of mates with the same wing and you can just tear around and try and ram each other and generally act like hooligans in a field, that's where these little wings come into their own. Some things I really liked about this wing. This is EPO foam. It feels really good quality. I'm not sure how brilliantly strong it is because I didn't crash it too badly. But the things I like about it are these plastic bits. When I just chucked it first time, although you didn't see it on film, so perhaps it didn't happen if it's not on film, it went into the nose, and if you've got a pure foam nose, that will crumple on a lot of wings, unless they're like laminated and stuff. But having this all the way around like this and having this skid plate really did toughen that up. The hatch is quite nice as well. Often in sort of traditional wing you're talking about cutting holes and stabbing things in, so I like this central section. So the downsides, I mean, it's a little wing and little wings are bobbly. That's pretty much just accepted. I don't think you're going to find a wing of this size that isn't going to do that. That's just the way it is. So the only thing I feel that's letting this wing down slightly is the price, which is fairly expensive for what you get. I mean, I don't know if this is the Durafly being a sort of a brand and a more premium brand, but it does seem fairly expensive for a wing like this, which has got not much in it. It could do with perhaps something like a stabilizer or some sort of basic flight system for that sort of price. But other than that, it's really nice. It's a nice little flyer. So yeah, check it down below on the HobbyKing site. I've got a link, of course. And yeah, thanks for HobbyKing for sending this for me to test. I will go out and abuse it some more later on. Anyway, I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.